Find KJ. Found it. We're done. Just kidding. All right, this is a mid-segment. A mid-segment is a line in a triangle that connects a midpoint of one side to a midpoint of another side. By definition, the mid-segment of a triangle is half of the base of the triangle. In other words, KJ is half of AC. KJ is half of 18. KJ is 9. So pretty simple. Mid-segment, nothing to lose a whole lot of sleep over. I did it. Solve for x. All right, x is just some arbitrary variable. What I have is a triangle. WRX, R is a midpoint because these two are congruent. And Q is also a midpoint because these two are congruent, which means QR is a mid-segment. By definition, a mid-segment is 1/2 the measure of the base. So we could say QR is 1/2 the measure of YW. QR is given to us as 2x minus 3. That's going to equal 1/2 of YW, which is x plus 9, and I'm going to put that in parentheses because you need it. Now it's just an equation with x on both sides of the equal sign. We do distributive property like so. 2x minus 3 is untouched, equals half of x plus 9. Let's get rid of half of an x, so minus 1/2 x minus 1/2 x. 2x's minus 1/2 is 1.5, or I'm going to write out 3 over 2x. Drop down the minus 3, drop down the equal sign, you're now gone, drop down the positive 9. Now it's a two-stepper. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, add 3 to both sides. 2/3 x equals 12. And rather than dividing both sides by 2/3, let's multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3 over 2. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 over 2. That allows me to cross these guys out. And the trick when you multiply a whole number to a fraction is do 12 divided by the denominator. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, and then 6 times 3 is 18. So in this case, all I had to do was find out x. X ended up being 18. The age of being an adult here in the United States. Find VW. Volkswagen. Happy Gilmore. VW. All right, well, W first off is a midpoint because these two are congruent. V is also a midpoint because these two are congruent, which tells me that this is a mid-segment. VW is a mid-segment. By definition, a mid-segment is half of the base of a triangle. So VW is half of NL. So VW was x plus 15. That's going to equal 1/2 of NL, which is x plus 21. Now it's just an equation with distributive property, x on both sides. So let's distribute out the 1/2. That gives me x plus 15. That part hasn't changed. Half of x is 1/2 x. And half of 21 is 21 over 2. Okay, you could put 10.5, you could put 10.5. I'm keeping it as 21 over 2. I have a feeling that's just going to be the best for us. You'll see why. Now I have x on the left and half x on the right. Let's get rid of the half x on the right by subtracting 1/2 x from both sides. 1 half x. 1 whole x minus 1 half x is 1 half x. Drop down the plus 15. Drop down the equals. You're gone. Drop down the 21 over 2. Now what I'm going to do while I'm at it is I'm going to quick replace this with this 15. I almost said 21. I got 21 on the mind. What was that? 15. I'm going to turn 15 into 30 over 2 because my next step is to subtract 15 or 30 over 2 from both sides. Where did I get 30 over 2? Because 15 divided by or multiplied by 2 over 2 is 30 over 2. Just a little bit of multiplication. So I'm going to subtract 30 over 2 from both sides. Subtract 30 over 2 from both sides. Cross you out. Drop down the 1 half x equals 21 over 2 minus 30 over 2 has me subtracting the numerator, so negative 9, but keeping the denominator over 2. My final step is rather than divide both sides by a half, multiply both sides by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over 1, which is the same as 2. That crosses these out. X is now alone on the left. Negative 9 over 2 times 2 has me cross out the 2's and leaves me with just the negative 9. Now my job here is to find VW. X is negative 9. Oh, the temptation to circle X is negative 9 is there, but that's not what I'm supposed to do. Now that I know that VW is X plus 15 and X is negative 9, I do negative 9 plus 15, which gives me 6. So VW is 6. And we're done. And you might be thinking, so then what's the point of MN? There was no point of MN. It's just there. So thanks. Thanks for nothing, MN. Thanks for nothing. The figure shows a triangle with one of its angle bisectors. Find x if the measure of angle 2 equals 1 plus 28x, and the measure of angle x VW is 59x minus 1. All right, this is angle 2 right there, and that's 1 plus 28x. X VW is this whole angle here, as I very poorly drew, but there it is. Now, an angle bisector sounds exactly what it is. It takes an angle and cuts it in half. So the measure of angle 2, and let me actually write that up here just in case I need the space. I don't know if I do, but I'm just going to do it up here. The measure of angle 2 cuts XVW in half. So half of the measure of angle XVW. So what's the measure of angle 2? 1 plus 28x. That's going to equal 1 half of the measure of angle XVW, which is 59x minus 1. Now, the other way I could set this up is I could have said that this guy equals 2 times the measure of angle 2. Either way, you'll get the same answer. I've already committed. So 1 plus 28x hasn't changed. I'm going to multiply 1 half to 59 over x. So I'm going to put that as 59 over 2x minus 1 times a half is minus a half. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, since my next step is to subtract 59 over 2, I'm going to turn 28 into something over 2. Now, if I'm going to turn 28 into something over 2, I multiply 28 by 2, which is 56. So I have 56 over 2x. Let's drop down the 1. Let's drop down the equals 59 over 2x minus a half. In order to get rid of this x over here, I'm going to subtract 59 over 2x. Again, subtract 59 over 2x, cross you out. 56 over 2 minus 59 over 2 is minus 3 over 2. Drop down the 1, drop down the equal sign, drop down the minus a half. Now what I have is a terrible, terrible, terrible two-step equation. I've heard of terrible twos, but terrible two-step equation, that's not much worse at all. I have a 2-year-old, and terrible twos are a nightmare. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, negative 1 over 2 minus 1, and let me write it over here. Negative 1 over 2 minus 1 is negative 3 over 2. So on the right, I have negative 3 over 2. On the left, I have negative 3 over 2x. That's actually pretty nice, because what I could do is I can multiply both sides by its reciprocal, which is negative 2 over 3. I know that looks sloppy, but if I multiply both sides by negative 2 over 3, that completely cancels out, which means that also completely cancels out, and x equals 1. Now my job is to find x. X equals 1. I don't have to do much more than that. It wasn't pleasant looking, but that's what I got, the end. Find PV if PW is 7. Now, I had to add the little lines here because I forgot to put the rest of the directions. These are all angle bisectors. You're an angle bisector, you're an angle bisector, you're an angle bisector. If you have the 3 angle bisectors of a triangle drawn out, they meet at a spot called the incenter. Now, the neat thing about the incenter is that the distance from the incenter to each side, as long as the sides are perpendicular to that distance, that's just how the definition works anyway. They have to be perpendicular from a point to a side. It's got to be perpendicular. It's just a rule. All of these guys are going to be congruent to each other. So PW is 7, which means PV is also 7, which means PX is also 7. I didn't tell you that, but that's just a rule. This is sometimes called the incenter theorem. But again, by definition, if you have your 3 angle bisectors drawn out, they meet at the incenter. And the incenter, if you were to draw 3 perpendicular lines, all 3 of those perpendicular lines are going to be the same measurement. So in this case, PV is 7 because PW is 7. And for those of you who live in southeast Pennsylvania, Perk Valley and Plymouth Whitemarsh, PX, nothing. XP, experience points. Like and subscribe. The figure shows a triangle with 1 or more of its medians. All right, so what's a median? A median connects an angle to the midpoint of its opposite side. So technically this happens, an angle to the midpoint of its opposite side, technically that happens. Find LJ, which is you, if IJ is 6. All right, not so bad. This whole side is 6. The whole side is 6. This is the midpoint, which means LJ is going to be half of the entire side. Half of the entire side. So LJ is going to be half of 6, which means LJ is 3. Dunzo funzo. Find K if xt equals and KB equals One of the things that I forgot to mention in the directions is all of these are medians. Okay, all of these are medians. And what a median does is it takes the midpoint of one side and connects it to the opposite angle. It doesn't mean that these are angle bisectors. It just means that these guys are the same. Now, is that what I have to do? I have to find KT. So this is even worse. KT is this line right here. And KB is this guy right here. The whole thing. Now, this is called a centroid. Doesn't really affect anything. I just wanted to call it a centroid. Now, what you do with medians is whatever the angle or the vertex is to the centroid, That's going to be 2/3 of the entire line. Okay, so KT is 2/3 of the entire line KB. Okay, so this is going to take a few minutes. KT is 6x plus 6 all over 5. That's going to equal 2/3 of 11 fifths x minus 6 over 5. Now, what I'm going to do to make my life a little bit easier is I'm going to combine these two. Is it necessary? No, but I'm going to combine these two. I have 6x plus 6 over 5. Nothing's changed there. 2/3, nothing's changed there. 11x minus 6 all over 5. 11x minus 6 all over 5, like so. Now what I can do is I'm going to multiply 2/3. So 2 is going to be multiplied to everything there. 6x plus 6 over 5, still unchanged. That's going to equal 2 times 11, which is 22, the Taylor-Swift special, minus 2 times 6, which is 12, all over 3 times 5, which is 15. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crisscross applesauce. That's why I combined things in the first place. I'm going to multiply 15 to 6x plus 6. 15 times 6 is 90, so that becomes 90x, and I'll write it up here, plus 90. I'm distributing 15 to both of these. 15 times 6x is 90x. 15 times 6 is 90, equals. I'm going to crisscross applesauce again. 5 times 22 is 110x. 5 times negative 12 is negative 60. And now I have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So why don't I subtract 110x from both? Minus 110x minus 110x. That gets me negative 20x plus 90 equals negative 60. Let's subtract 90. Let's subtract 90. And that gets me negative 20x equals negative 150. Divide both sides by negative 20. Divide both sides by negative 20. And x equals positive 7.5. Ooh. Not fun at all. But that's medians. They're just not fun. Find the coordinates of the centroid. The centroid is found by basically connecting the midpoints to all of the angles. Now, so there's a lot of mid stuff going on here. So it would make sense that what you do is you take all of the x values. So I will label them by calling them x sub 1, x sub 2, and x sub 3. You add all three of them up and divide by 3. It's basically finding the average. Do the same thing with the y values. Y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3. Add them up, divide by 3. All right, so let's find out our three x values. That x value is negative 5, so negative 5, plus that x value is 0. I think I can handle that. Plus that x value is 2. So negative 5, 0, 2 divided by 3. My y values are 0. This goes all the way up to 6, so plus 6. And this is 0 again because that point is 2, 0. Divide u by 3. Negative 5 plus 0 plus 2 is going to be negative 5 plus 2, which is negative 3 over 3. 0 plus 6 plus 0 is 6. I think I can handle that. 6 over 3. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that's my answer. So negative 1, 2. As you can see, again, it's found by connecting all of the angle, I don't want to say angle bisectors because that's not true, all of the midpoints to their opposite angles. So midpoint, opposite angle, midpoint, opposite angle. Right in the middle there is your centroid. There you have it. Find the coordinates of the centroid. All right, the centroid is basically connected by taking a bunch of midpoints and connecting it to its opposite angle. Now, there's no picture, and you might be thinking, what the heck does that mean? Don't even worry about it. What you do is you take the three x values. So if I were to label these x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, very slope formula E, but I have x sub 3, y sub 3. You find the centroid by adding all of the x values, x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3, and divide it by 3. Do the same thing with the y values, y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3, divided by 3. So that's going to be 3 plus negative 5 plus 0 divided by 3. And that's going to be y sub 1, which is 4, plus 0, plus 0 divided by 3. 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2, plus 0 is still negative 2. So this gives me negative 2 over 3, so I'll just write that out as negative 2 over 3. 4 plus 0 just gives me 4 over 3, so I'll write it out like that. And that's my guy. And if you're like, well, those are fractions, that ain't good. It ain't wrong. No one likes fractions, but there's nothing wrong with that answer. So we're done. State if the three numbers can be the measures of the sides of a triangle. This uses what's called the triangle inequality theorem. And the triangle inequality theorem says that if you add any two sides of a triangle, it has to be greater than that third side. So if I were to label a triangle, just any arbitrary triangle, x, y, z. X plus y has to be greater than z. X plus z has to be greater than y. And what didn't I do? Y plus z has to be greater than x. So if I call you x, y, and z, we could put all of those to the test. X plus y is 8 plus 2 has to be greater than 8. Yep, checks out. 10 is greater than 8. X plus z is going to be 8 plus 8 has to be greater than y, which is greater than 2. 18 is greater than 2. That checks out. And y plus z has to be greater than x, so 2 plus 8 has to be greater than 8. That checks out. So are these the three sides of a triangle? Yay. That's my daughter sneezing. Now we'll try it again. This is x, this is y, this is z. So I have to say 3 plus 6 has to be greater than 2. 9's greater than 2. Check. X plus z, 3 plus 2 has to be greater than 6. No. 5 is not greater than 6. So can these be the measures of a triangle? No. And that makes sense. There's no way you can build a triangle that has a side of 3, a side of 2, which adds up to 5, and has it reach up to a 6. Not possible. So this one was a yes, this one was a no, and that's the triangle inequality theorem in a nutshell. The two sides of a triangle have the following measures. Find the range of possible measures for the third side. Simple. What you do is you take these numbers and you subtract the largest from the smallest. That's 3. Then you add these two, that's 15, and your third side, which we'll call x, has to be in between them. It can't be equal to, it has to be in between. So another way that we could say this is greater than 3, but smaller than 15. So this uses the triangle inequality theorem, but really quick. It basically says that, look, if you needed to connect these, you need something like 3.1, 3.2, or you can have 14.9. You can't have anything bigger than 15. You can't have anything smaller than 3. So anything between 3 and 15 should do the job. Dunzo. Order the angles in each triangle from smallest to largest. Well, this doesn't give us the angles. Oh, but you know what it does? It gives us the sides. And whatever the largest side is, in this case 18, its opposite angle is going to be the largest. So let's find the smallest side first. Okay, LK is the smallest side, which means angle J is going to be the smallest angle because J is opposite of 14, which is the smallest side. Similarly, the one in the middle is 16. So the opposite angle of 16 is K. So angle K is going to be in the middle. And then the largest angle is going to be L, like I mentioned before, because the largest side is 18, so the largest angle is going to be angle L. So angle J, angle K, angle L, because you were the smallest, you were in the middle, and you are the largest side. And that's it. Order the sides of each triangle from shortest to longest. Well, I don't have the sides. I have the angles. Oh, but you know what? What I can do is I can find the shortest angle, which is 55. And whatever the shortest angle is, the side opposite that is going to be the shortest side. So since my shortest angle is, or my smallest angle is angle F, the shortest side is going to be side GE. So let's find the medium angle, 62, barely, but that's the medium angle. The side opposite that is side GF, so we'll say side GF for girlfriend. And last but not least, the biggest angle is 63, so the side opposite of that is going to be FE, so my longest side is FE. So there you have it. Whatever the shortest angle is, its opposite side is the shortest side, and so on and so on. And we are done.